With Kathleen Reinhardt from Oxford Brookes University to talk about something that comes up all the time, which isn't carbs, fats, eating after 6 p.m., which is actually sleep, which is often people will say this is like the boring part because it's everyone knows it, but I feel like no one really wants to talk about it because it's just one of those things where there's no kind of quick fix, simple pill. But yeah, so if you could just introduce yourself and just let us, everybody know kind of who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So as Matt said, I'm Kathleen Reinhardt. I'm at Oxford Brookes University in the Department of Anthropology and Geography. I'm just finishing my PhD right now, where I've been researching sleep and thermoregulation on a nocturnal primate. They're called slow lorises, and I watched them for about a year and a half in the wild to get an idea of how they respond to cold, temperatures, and also light, and how that affects their sleeping patterns.
Yeah, cool. And most people will be thinking, like, how does that relate to humans right now? So why does that animal, if you like, what can we actually extrapolate from that, and kind of what have you found, like in summary?
So we can get an idea of the evolution of sleep towards humans because slow lorises are one of the earliest living primates. So if you look at the primate order, they're at the furthest evolutionary distance from us, but they show us how we could have gotten to the sleep patterns that we have now as humans. And what I've mainly found for them is that they are strongly influenced by temperature changes in their sleep patterns, okay. But the biggest driver is actually light. So sunrise and sunset really determine their intrinsic sleep needs, and they're what's called monophasic sleepers, which is what we are as well. So you notice that as humans, we tend to sleep in one large bout for the most part. We go to bed sometime after sunset, we wake up after sunrise, or around that fluctuation. Slow lorises are the opposite. So they go to bed when the sun rises, and they wake up when the sun sets. So they're true nocturnal primates, but they also experience disruptions of sleep where the temperatures change while they're sleeping. And then during their active period, they then catch up for that lost sleep by napping. So every single slow loris that we observed was found to nap, and they do this to make up the cumulative amount of sleep need that they require to function every day on a physiological level and their cognitive abilities.
So to put that into perspective for humans, if I got 4 hours sleep because the babies were up and I had to be up early, I would nap in the afternoon to make up for it, or sleep longer the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
If I wasn't kind of socialized, I didn't have stuff to do, I would just make up for it.
Yeah, you would experience what's called sleep pressure. So your body would feel a need to sleep more. And if you went to take a nap and didn't set an alarm, you would just kind of sleep until you more or less needed to wake up.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so before we go into that, you mentioned about like light, so sunrise and sunset. This time of year, yeah. So especially with a lot of the ladies I work with, they'll start to say, like, and me included as well, like the mornings, it's harder to get up because obviously we still get up and it's dark, and then we get home and it's dark, but we still expect to function because stuff is there to be done, be it exercise in the morning or evening, or doing stuff with people. But people feel tired. Is that just a normal thing, or should someone be? Because I find that people wrongly, really, I guess, beat themselves up for feeling tired when actually, technically, we have a biological circadian rhythm, and that's kind of how we are. Don't know, what's your take on that?
I think it's definitely a natural feeling for sure, especially for primates. There are some primates that really change their patterns so if you're living in the wild, for example, you don't have curtains or anything to change your lighting scenario. They're going to respond entirely to the changes in sunrise and sunset as the year goes on. So you'll notice that their waking up shifts throughout the annual year. So it's super normal for everyone to feel that and for it to be harder to get out of bed.
So, yeah. So what, is there any, so would there be any drawbacks, do you feel like, in terms of getting up in the dark? Like, would, I guess, using alarm. So when you do your studies, are they ever woken up by things that aren't kind of, so have you ever witnessed anything that's like a bit out of the blue and it wakes them up, and then how do they react to that? Do they act differently, I guess?
Behaviorally, they don't react much differently aside from their naps. So if they're woken up in the middle of their sleep patterns, the longer that disruption is, the longer they'll nap later during their active period.
Okay. So that gives
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
Every Soloris naps for at least 30 minutes throughout their period of activity. But if they say had 3 hours where they woke up in the middle of their sleep, then they often will almost the same amount of time will nap for to balance that out.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's good to know, and actually justifies my own napping. And the fact that a lot of people feel guilty for having naps.
Yeah.
Which, like, people have maybe from their upbringing been told that, you should be doing something. You shouldn't sit down, and, it's lazy to do that. And actually, when we're tired, we haven't got much energy. Perhaps if we don't nap, we then look for food quite often when we're not necessarily hungry. Oh, I think it just went a bit then. Sorry, back.
For a second.
Did you catch that?
I missed the last sentence or two.
So I was just saying, when people are maybe tired and actually maybe they've got that sleep pressure, which we'll go into in a minute, maybe they need a nap or feel like they could nap, but they feel guilty for doing it. So instead, sometimes that's where bad eating habits can come in. They pick things that maybe they don't want, like sweet food, sugar foods, to give them that pick-me-up, but then end up feeling guilty anyway, rightly or wrongly. So I guess I'm just reiterating the message that napping is a very natural thing to do, and it's not lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm a huge advocate for naps, and I used to also feel very guilty about napping, and would feel like I needed to kind of power through. But naps are good as long as you don't nap for too long, that then you throw off your natural need to sleep later in the day. Because if you sleep for, say, if you took a nap for 5 hours, it would really decrease your sleep pressure to go to bed in the evening. So you don't want to do that like right before, say, supper time or anything.
So how long would you say? Is there an optimal time?
I think it depends on the individual. So it's a little hard to say, but I mean, personally, I have like what I've noticed to be my good nap threshold. But again, it would vary per person. I usually nap for maximum kind of an hour, but again, that's for humans isn't exactly my expertise. So I kind of feel a little guilty saying too much about that.
Yeah. So, because you often hear, don't have longer than 20 minutes. Is that
kind of very hard to do?
Yeah. That's what you hear a lot. Is there anything around that? Do you know?
I don't know any researchers that have found that to be exact. Again, I think it really does depend on the individual, how long they've been awake, what time they want to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I think 20 minutes is a nice idea, but I think it's quite hard to manage, because within the time that you would actually fall asleep, and then the type of sleep that you would get within 20 minutes, and then to make sure that you wake up can be a bit hard to manage, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why I find 1 hour is quite nice, because, it gives me time to fall asleep for that nap.
Yeah.
So then maybe by the time I actually am asleep, it is only about 20 minutes. But for my alarm, I always set it like at an hour.
Okay. And I mean, obviously, sometimes we don't have an hour. Would you still see some benefits though, in terms of like, because me personally, I try to sleep for, or nap if you like, for about, I kind of set my alarm for like 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so. And it's more like, almost like restfulness / nap. Sometimes I'll fall asleep, sometimes I won't. I might sleep for 5 minutes in that time. but obviously I guess there's still benefits of doing
Mhm.
that, is what I'm saying on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to sleep, there's something called rest rebound.
Okay.
So sleep rebound is what I was saying about catching up on sleep, more or less. It's when, later when you go to bed, you add some extra sleep onto it and you're rebounding on that lost sleep. But they found a similar thing with animals that rest. So for species that we don't necessarily know sleep, it's kind of a bit of a gray area whether they're sleeping or resting. We do see that rest rebound also has a huge influence on energy and performance and cognitive abilities of animals.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I know I can shut my eyes for 5 minutes and feel so much better. It surprises me how much better I can feel in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned about kind of sunset, sunrise. How does so like obviously blue light and TV screens, phones, laptops play into this? Like, do you feel that can be quite disruptive to our sleep pressure, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been some studies that have found, particularly with blue light. So blue light is similar to what we experience when our body's going to feel like it should be awake. So if you have blue light later in the evening, your body might be a bit confused and think that you're still supposed to be awake, even though you might need to sleep at that point. So it can really throw off our natural circadian rhythms in that way.
Yeah. And do you think that's because I often think, it's quite a relatively new thing, right? In our, the way of living, how much light we're exposed to, artificial light, and whether that's having like that quite an effect on the quality of our sleep. But if we know that sleep is probably, one of the most important things, we talk about diet all the time, but actually there's no new sleep study really like that. It like hits the headlines so much compared to like, try this food, try this ingredient. And I guess, yeah, like with the amount of blue light we have, then people struggling to get to sleep. And then when they wake up, obviously they're like, oh, I can't sleep. The first thing someone grabs often is a phone. And, they have got these blue light blockers now. I don't know if you've seen them. I don't know how effective that is, but I guess it's still stimulation, isn't it? Even if you're on your phone. So,
that's a good question. I mean, I've found since I've been reading a bit more on everything with blue light that as I've downloaded apps and stuff for my laptop and my phone, that it's helped me on a personal level.
Yeah.
If not just to feel that pressure to go to sleep, because if I start doing work quite late in the evening and I have the blue lights on, I find that I sometimes can kind of really buzz into work, but as you mentioned earlier, in that kind of unhealthy way, and then start eating really unhealthy foods and end up just eating like a packet of digestives or something while typing.
Yeah.
But now, I've gotten these apps that kind of fix that and make natural lighting. So you set the times for when you want to go to bed, and then it sets a natural light change on the laptop, and it makes me more aware of the time in a positive way, like as if like, okay, I should start winding down now. And if I do need to do a bit of work a bit later than I would like to on my laptop, at least it's still keeping me feeling natural, more or less. And I find that even my eating habits have gotten better.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because that like tip right there, if you like, just to limit blue light, is so simple, but it's not, because it's not fun. It's not something you can just take. It's something you got to do. It's it can be quite hard, right? Because TVs, because TVs definitely don't have it, and I know some people have those blue light blocking glasses. Don't know if you've seen them. Yeah, you might just look a bit funny in the room there, but so it's so simple, but like I said, not enough of us really do it, I guess, because even me, I don't, sometimes if I've got to do some work, I'll just do it. But quite often I know, and it's interesting because you said about sleep patterns, I know that I'll be way more productive in the morning if I just go to bed, leave the work I've got to do, but get up earlier, I'm just my eating habits, everything that, I don't need, like, I'll get a cup of coffee and a tea or whatever, just sort of procrastinating things to push me through. I'm just like on it in the morning. So one of the questions I had was, I'm a night owl. Could that be detrimental to my health? Like, is that a problem? Like, yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a problem as long as the sleep is still gained. So if you're a night owl and then you end up sleeping a bit later than most people in the morning, or you end up napping later, it's fine as long as it works for you, because everyone has different sleep patterns. I have a colleague that only needs about 5 hours of sleep a night, and they're just like one of those people that kind of keeps going but doesn't get tired. And then meanwhile, I feel like I need like a pretty solid 7, and then sometimes nap here and there, and it really goes by the person. But as long as they're getting sleep, I would say it's absolutely fine. When I was studying slow lorises in the wild, I had to become nocturnal, and I had to shift entirely so that I could observe their natural behaviors, since they woke up at sunset and went to bed at sunrise. So I was sleeping from about 8 a.m. until maybe 4 p.m. or so, and it was a very different environment, and it's hard to shift, but once you get comfortable in it, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel any differently in that? Because I work with a few people who do shift work, and obviously there's quite a lot of research in shift pattern work and it being quite detrimental in some areas, in terms of like, hang on, just went there. Did you hear that? I think it just broke up a little bit. Yeah. Are you back? Can you hear me again? Yeah. So shift workers, with some kind of quite detrimental effects on like sleep and how much sleep they do get. So I guess again it's just coming back down to, so would you say that as long as they get the sleep in, it doesn't matter? But I guess the quality of the sleep's an issue if they're not maybe blackout curtains, stuff like that.
Yeah, sleep quality has a huge influence, of course. Maybe if they use sleep masks or something like an eye mask to really keep the light out, because the light's really gonna fragment the sleep if they have natural light coming into their windows, if they need to sleep during the day. And I guess consistency as well makes a big difference. So it's when you really, if you had to change between diurnal to nocturnal sleeping patterns every other day, that's gonna kind of throw you off a bit. So I guess trying to make things as consistent as possible.
Yeah, and that's I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but that's just because I saw something not too long ago. Actually, I was at a conference, and there was a Q&A, and someone asked, like, what's the best thing you can recommend to help with like shift patterns? I'm tired a lot, and their response was, don't work shifts anymore. Which, but obviously some people kind of need to, etc. And I guess consistency is going to be the key thing. So maybe, I guess, if they can have like, at least nights in a row or days in a row and week off, but
and that's something they're catching up.
Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned about temperature as well. Obviously that's what's around on temperature. You said temperature can have that wakefulness effect.
So all animals have what's called a thermoneutral zone, and that's kind of the temperature that our body functions the best at physiologically, that we're most comfortable in. So if you think about when in the summertime, if it's really hot, you might really struggle to go to sleep, or you might wake up in the middle of the night because you're too hot. That's because the temperatures have gone above your thermoneutral zone. So trying to keep temperatures as stable and within that range while you're sleeping is going to theoretically increase your sleep quality, at least for primates.
Yeah. Okay. And you can kind of, because that kind of does help back up quite a lot of research in humans as well, with regards to like sleep hygiene in us. So like we know that kind of having a bath, for example, before bed, like, and then coming out and then your body naturally lowering its temperature. Likewise, keeping your bedroom cool, that's quite well known to be effective in that. Because I know if you've ever kind of left the heating on or something like that, and you've got up and you're just roasting hot at 2 a.m. or something. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you mentioned about sleep pressure before. Like, what are things that can increase sleep pressure? So say someone struggles to get to sleep. What are things that we know increases sleep pressure?
Basically, the longer you're awake, the more sleep pressure you're going to experience. It's called sleep homeostasis. So, that's pretty much it with that. I know some colleagues that study exercise as well, although this hasn't been something that I've looked at. And they're currently trying to see if more physical activity during the day is going to increase your pressure of sleep. So if you think about it, if you go out for like a hike all day and then you go to sleep, like you lie down in bed, you really almost kind of fall right asleep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what their hypothesis is. But I don't believe they've finished that yet.
They haven't finished it, did you say?
The study, no. I think they're still working on it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I guess, like, some people, it can be quite stimulating, but I guess as soon as you do sit down, then you kind of do end up sleep. I mean, and also you can relate it to different aspects, because by exercising, I guess there's a few other variables that we've talked about. To say you exercise, you might end up getting daylight in the process of it, which might help. And then you're likely to have a bath or shower before bed, which can help with your temperature bringing down. You might just relax more, not think about work as much, which is distressful. It's just coming in a kind of full loop round in there, in terms of like bringing out all the temperature, light that we know, and obviously exercise as well within that.
There's just to add to that, there's quite a good study actually that's looked at kind of a combination of the exercise and lighting by some researchers in Colorado, and they've looked at people going for the weekend, going hiking and camping without their blue light electronics, and kind of found that doing that reset the circadian rhythms of people that live in places that have very extreme different lighting environments, such as in Finland, where you have the really long light summers and then the low light winters. So that kind of took both aspects of the light and the physical activity and fixing that.
Well, it's fascinating because I went camping in the summer, and I was obviously where you're just outside, and then the light's just naturally dimming. I could have went to bed at about 8:30, and just, I thought it was, everyone always says if you go camping, you're like, what's the time? 8:30. Is that it? Like, I thought it was like 10. Everyone's just tired because you just sat around outside. I guess temperature's cooling, but in the summer, obviously. So that, no, I would definitely vouch for that in terms of that. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me just check if I've got any other questions on that, because I had quite a few in, and obviously I know some of them kind of, it's difficult to extrapolate completely with it. Have you got anything else planned in terms of like researching around the sleep area?
I'm looking to stay a bit in the sleep research area and looking more into what I was saying about the thermoneutral zone, but looking more into species that live in high altitude mountains that hibernate, and seeing how they get their sleep need and also manage their metabolism by hibernating. So that's kind of what I'm going to dive into a bit further now. So.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm intrigued also. How did you conduct your research? Like, yeah, I mean, go into that. I'm quite intrigued. Yeah.
So I went out to West Java, Indonesia, and moved into a small village with my research project, which is directed by my supervisor, actually, called the Little Fireface Project. And they focus on slow loris conservation, but study some other nocturnal animals. And we lived in a house in the village, and we would go out every night and find slow lorises using what's called radio telemetry. So the lorises were almost like a dog collar. and then it has an antenna in it. So then we can use an antenna and radio frequency to figure out what each individual is, to figure out who they all are. And then we would just follow them throughout the night using red light, because this way we didn't throw off their circadian rhythms, and they are what's called monochromatic, so they can only see really in black and white, and they don't see red light at all. Okay. So we would follow them using that and just record their behavior, and also used accelerometers, which is similar to like your Fitbit, for example. And it just measures their locomotion and the frequency of the locomotion, and then using that we can extrapolate whether they're active or inactive, and we validate it with the behavioral observations as well.
Okay, it'd be fascinating to see, because I don't really know much about them, but it'd be fascinating to see about their movement in their sleep. And they're really cool animals. They have an extra vertebra in their spine, so it's like watching like a little furry yogi moving through the forest in a way. Yeah, cool. So I think that's everything I had that was kind of relevant with this. And I think if you just kind of sum it up, it just reinforces kind of the fact that, well, one, we shouldn't be beating ourselves up if you feel tired. Like something I say quite a lot is like, feel your feelings a bit, like in terms of, you know, we often say, I feel tired. And instead of just asking yourself, you know, what does that mean? Well, I should probably have a nap, have a sit down, at least shut my eyes. We just kind of try and fight it and go, I shouldn't feel tired. Why am I feeling tired? Beating ourselves up, wasting energy, and actually end up kind of poor eating habits, like we said already, and turning to food with that. And then you've obviously got the lighting that we talked about. I know it's boring and it's not this like, you know, one trick supplement or anything, but yeah, like lighting, dimming, blue light, you know, most of the phones should do it now. So I guess other than that, it's kind of looking at how you can look at temperature as well, making sure that you kind of keep your bedroom kind of cool. Do you know anything about like what the optimal temperature is and anything like that?
I don't know what it is in humans, really. But it's usually, if you think around our natural body temperature, it's always going to be within a threshold of that in either direction. So as long as we're not going too far away from the normal human body temperature, you could think of it in terms of that.
Because there's so many gadgets now. There's like obviously you can put like mats underneath your bed and whatnot, or sheets if you like, which goes warm, cold, all that stuff. Yeah. Sounds quite good actually.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's everything. Have you got anything that you want to kind of add to that that you think might be helpful in terms of sleep? Because it is one thing that I find isn't talked about that much. You know, we talk about comfort eating all the time, you know, food, getting exercise in, and I want more energy, but often we don't look at sleep. It's quite ignored. I guess it is kind of a catch-22 a bit, because sometimes, like what we've said already, maybe exercise helps with sleep pressure. So instead of sleeping to have more energy, it's exercise helps with sleep, maybe. It's hard to put it around that way, but
it's hard to kind of say concrete with these things, but I would just add, don't fight the need to sleep. Exactly like you said, if you feel like you need to sleep, then sleep, because your body definitely needs it. And even though you might think, I need to get this done, so a nap would be a bad idea, or going to bed later would be a better idea, you're better off getting the sleep that you need, and then you'll be more efficient when you wake up from your sleep.
Yeah, and that reminds me, as I just looked at my flowery cup to see an empty coffee. Do you know much around in terms of like caffeine? Do you have any like recommendations around that? Like I personally like try and avoid it after like 3 p.m. or so. But I don't know if you have any recommendations around that.
Unfortunately, I'm a terrible caffeinator, so I don't know if I'm a good one for this. We often will talk about in the lab how for people who study sleep, we all have some pretty bad habits actually, and so I don't think I should probably talk about coffee consumption.
Well, that's good. I drink a lot of it. But the funny thing that I find is that it doesn't actually, although I do try not to have it later in the day, because I feel that maybe it will, well, according to what it does, it should maybe reduce my quality of sleep potentially. But I don't have, my caffeine threshold seems pretty good, as in I could have a coffee and go straight to bed.
I'm kind of similar with that actually, but it might just be because we consume so much that But some more recent studies have found that, which I was very happy about, that it's not that bad to have multiple cups of coffee during the day. So I was very excited about that one.
Yeah, let's just focus on that though. So drink coffee, nap when you want, don't fight it, sleep, and continue to drink coffee. I think that's a good message. So sleep and drink coffee.
Yeah.
And then cool, perfect. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks a lot for that. If there's anyone has any questions or anything, fire them over to me, and I can always forward them on if there's anything that you can help with as well. Perfect. And then hopefully we'll have more sleep researchers on in the future. Perfect. Thanks for that. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll just stop share on there.